Welcome to another episode of This Car Still Smells Like Shit. Even though we've taken the interior out of it, there is enough Muppet gooch still attached to the dash that whatever has been squirted on it over time is still enough to infect one's nasal cavity with the absolute skunky, snaily grot that permeates the front of my face.
Which is now on your butt, because when you were sitting in there before we were wiring it,
It was wet.
Your butt got moist.
Yes.
But that hasn't been sitting there for ages and carpet or anything. We got rid of that.
Yeah.
Like in the bin and gone.
Martin, what do we...
This episode of Mighty Car Mods,
Yes.
we are going to make this thing work. Get an exhaust, go on the dyno,
And
get
do
a,
stuff.
do stuff. Let's do it.
Welcome to another episode of Mighty Car Mods. We've got an almighty project on this mad little Daihatsu here. We bought this car a little while ago. I mean, I say we because I'm trying to kind of share the blame with him. I bought it completely sight unseen off the internet. Martin seems to believe I got ripped. I don't know why. He thinks I paid 6 times too much. I think I bought it for $3,000. He reckons it's worth $500. The car is very strange. It smells bad. We know this. We've been squeezing juice out of it. But we have been endeavouring on an almighty project, we're embarking on something we've never done before, and that is why we've been putting a lot of effort into this car, but also in a very short amount of time.
That's right. And the idea is make it as good as it possibly can be. The engine needed to be refreshed, and it was. It's got a new clutch in it. We've put an epic ECU system on this to run and control it so we can gather as much data as we can on what this car does to improve our lap time. So the plan is...
Hey Martin, how many people refresh this kind of car? I mean, we're talking about pulling the engine out and rebuilding it. Like, how many people go to that kind of effort in this country with this kind of car?
Not many, but these all end up blowing smoke, and it's always
Zero.
rings. So,
Zero.
But it can be fixed. And what I love about this, it can be fixed. And with some parts and some time, it's basically good as new. So it needs an exhaust. It needs an alignment. It needs to be set up with its mad coilovers properly.
And it's currently got run-in oil. So basically that's oil that's just put in there so that it can start and kind of go. Now that the car has successfully started, you probably saw that last episode, take it up, dump the oil, we put it in. Martin, there's a couple of different options you can go for with oil, whether you want to do some daily fanging or whether you actually want to fang it hard. We're doing a 60 weight, is that right?
We're going to go 1060, Castrol Edge 1060, because we're going to be absolutely thrashing this on the track constantly. And so we want as much protection as we can get to keep that engine alive, particularly because it's just a little engine making not a lot of power. We're going to be asking a lot of it. But step one is get rid of the run-in oil, so that's what we're going to do.
When you've had an engine apart and reassembled it, a run-in oil is used to help the piston rings bed in properly with the cylinder walls, preventing glazing of the bores. Most importantly, regular oil changes during the first 5,000 Ks can help make sure everything is running properly.
This is Castrol Edge. We use it in all our cars. This particular one is 10W60. It is quite a thick oil. I use it in the Lavorg because it's got quite big tolerances. Lots of big GTRs use them as well. Because we are going to be thrashing this thing on the track, we're going to give ourselves a bit of extra protection. Now, what's the downside to using a thicker oil? Well, talk to your engine builder, but it can affect your economy because it does create a little bit more drag inside the engine. So a thinner oil, and a lot of newer cars come with thinner oil, is better for economy, better for emissions, stuff like that. This is perfect for our case, so we're going to chuck this in right now.
This little Daihatsu uses such a little amount of oil that it'll pay mechanical dividends to change it regularly. The way that we're going to be driving it, we need the best oil we can get. And this stuff has fluid titanium, which means it gets stronger under pressure.
Our oil change is done. You actually get 2 oil changes out of this 5-litre bottle because that engine only requires 2.5 litres. Once you've done your oil change, if you're going to the dyno or the track, it's a good idea to take your bottle with you so you can check it right before you spin up 1,000 horsepower or do a 30-second lap of Motorsport Park.
Next up, we have got to go and get an exhaust, plus we've got to get some stuff set up for the track. But before that, we've got to put in a proper seat, so that is what is next. You may have worked out by now that we have spent way too much money on this car, which is why I'm excited to reveal that we got this seat for free. Yes, it's second hand and we've borrowed it, but it's cost us absolutely nothing. The seat rails are also second hand and they were sent to us by an MCM fan in Tasmania. All we paid was postage. What a legend. One of the most important aspects of going fast in your car is feeling like you are confidently in control of your car and of your body. If you want to see more about kind of setting up your seat and stuff like that, check out our cash versus trash special on seats. This here is a second-hand seat that we got. It was a display seat that we just managed to get access to, which was pretty cool. And we've got a Bride seat rail, which actually came second-hand from a Mighty Car Mods fan down in Tasmania. So this here is going in the Daihatsu because we have got some track action coming up. So, yeah, not a whole lot to say. It's fixed back. That is a requirement. You'll find out why soon. I know it's all like Secret Squirrel and Secret Mouse. Is it Secret Mouse? Danger Mouse and Secret Squirrel and Gummy Bears and who's the guy with the extendy arm, Martin?
Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, and I'll Inspector Gadget, but soon it'll all make sense. Anyway, so I'm going to throw this in and then we will kick on with the build. Then we've got to take the car off to go and get the exhaust done. And then there's wiring and stuff to do. We'll be back for that soon. For now, though, we'll throw the seat in. When you're working on cheap little cars like this, it's not uncommon to spend as much on the seats as you did for the whole car, which is pretty much what I did recently, importing a set of fixed back bridge seats from Japan for my Suzuki Swift Sport. But they are an amazing seat. This one is a straight up bolt-in affair, so a few minutes later and we're done. So the seat is in and this taxidermied Muppet is starting to feel like a track car. Now what makes track days exciting? Well, it's checking your times, of course, so you can just use your iPhone and that's what we've done a lot of the times in the past, but we're actually going to flip over to using an iPad mini. It's just a bigger screen and easier to see. This one is using the new quad-lock iPad mini case. It's compatible with all of our other mounts, including the windscreen suction mount like that. This here is also an iPad mini that has cellular on it, which means we can actually run this as a Wi-Fi hotspot. So if there's any other technology that we need in the car that needs to get access to the internet, we'll be doing it through this. So that's going to be mounted up there. You'll be seeing more of that soon. But for now, it's time to get the exhaust on and then back to Super Garage for wiring with Dave.
We're running a simple budget custom exhaust in this rusty Muppet. 2-inch pipes, some press bends and a straight through muffler is all we'll need. It will be a little bit noisy, but this is a race car, so it will be perfect.
Amazing that with no tune and no dyno, it's fully drivable. It's really, really cool. Just think the smarts are getting so much smarter in these sort of systems like what the Haltech's got. Drives good actually, the suspension feels really good, which is cool. I don't fit that great, so I'm not stoked with the seat position. The seat itself is good, but the seat position, not so much. So again, that's the reason we sort of got to just try it out and see what happens. Oh, wheel spin. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Look, it doesn't sound great. Oh. This car's so funny.
This car may be one of the filthiest and smelliest cars we've ever bought, but it's also about to be one of the most technically advanced because we are going to throw a huge amount of technology and sensors at this thing. Why? Well, you'll see. Everybody, we've got Dave here. Now, Dave, here's the question. If you were a single man and you were on a dating app and there was a bunch of checkboxes, right? And one of those checkboxes you could tick and it says the person that you'll be dating tonight has a very small Daihatsu, would that incentivize you or not to go on a date with that person? Just think about that.
Swipe left, swipe right. What's
I've never
yes,
swiped.
What's no?
I don't know.
Go up.
Do you know which way you swipe, Mark?
Is it up?
No. Up?
Which way do you swipe?
Up. Do you wipe down or do you wipe up?
I'm asking you, the cameraman.
Yeah. Oh.
You swipe up, do you? Okay. Why do you swipe up so many times? I don't know how that works. What are we talking about? We're talking about Daihatsus, damn it. Dave's here because this car, yes, we can make it run with the Haltech. Yes, we've got the dash on there, but we're adding special sauce. Dave, what's the special sauce we're adding? We're adding sensors. We need to know what's going on. Tell me how that's going to work.
We're doing lots of engine protection functions, essentially. We're going to look after every single thing that we can. Oil. So we're going to replace the factory oil pressure switch,
yep,
which simply turns a light on the dash.
Yep.
While that's good to know that you're actually out of oil, it's good to know when it's starting to get a little bit low.
Yes, okay.
So that you can save the engine.
Not just a warning light, but actually put it into some protection.
It's a warning to tell you have no oil, not you have an oil pressure problem.
And that?
This will also do temperature and it will do pressure. So
in one?
Yep, in one.
Okay. And what do you have to do to make it work?
So we're going to add 5 volts, a signal ground, and we're going to run a temperature wire. We're going to use the existing wire in the loom that's there for the pressure switch, and we're just going to put this in place of the factory switch and then wire that.
These are a weird thread though, right?
They are, they're a weird thread.
So we need adapters, which I do have somewhere.
Yep.
That will adapt that.
Beautiful.
We can use the same thing for coolant?
We're going to use the same for coolant, so we're going to use the factory temperature. There is already another wire. This is a weird connector I've never seen before, except for on this Daihatsu, and then the midget as well. It's like a little triangle connector. That also does the gauge needle.
We don't have.
We're not going to use that either, so I'm going to repurpose that for coolant pressure, just in case there's any weird blockages or the thermostat has a problem,
And
if we have one.
Fuel pressure and fuel temp.
And we're going to do fuel pressure and fuel temp, so we can keep an eye on everything that's happening.
With 3 of these.
3 of these.
We're not using any existing dash, are we?
No.
Nothing.
No.
I don't need to.
No, I'm even going to take the alternator light and I'm going to put it into the ECU as well, so we can make the alternator charge. So we literally have just the ECU, this loom, and the car is almost a whole separate thing, which is pretty cool.
These are a bit of a funky thread, so what you can do is you can get adapters. That adapts to what is a very standard thread for oil pressure and pressure
What do you call that
switches.
again?
1/8 BSP.
BSP, okay.
Toyota use them for whatever reason, and Daihatsu. And this one
Mitsubishi as well, I think.
is a
That's what it is.
metric coolant, which is M12.
Yep.
So that adapts from an M12 into this sensor. So it's a really neat way of just going bang, bang, and then wire it in.
Yep. Very good to have all these, particularly in a turbocharged car, to have that, or big turbocharged car, to have that coolant pressure is a very, very important thing.
Or a race car.
Yeah,
Because
or
you
a
might
race
not
car.
know that it's going wrong, right?
Correct. Yeah. So it's really, really good just to see what it does when we do some testing and find out what its base is, and then we can set alerts above that for anything.
Hey, Dave, we appreciate you.
I love you.
Oh, thank you, mate.
What a mad
But, you know, like, I mean, not just us. Look at the comments. Have a look right now. Have a look. Can you see them all? Yep. They're like, Dave's a legend. Dave's awesome. Can you see them?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh,
It's a very, you know what?
Thank you.
We actually really love you guys. Like I reckon we got one of the best audiences out there. There's just a bunch of legends, but a lot of positivity for you because you are an excellent human. We like you very much. You're clever and you're kind. You know what doesn't come across on screen? Kindness. He's a kind man and he's very clever. If you can get someone who's kind and clever, that combo, absolute winning. Yep. Anything else is a bonus. Yep. A bonus. Kind and clever. That's him and other things.
Thank you. Appreciate
Except he likes Mitsubishis.
it. I do.
But we don't worry about that because he's still kind and clever. All right, I got this off. Now we can see.
One of my new favourite things are these combination sensors that will give you both a pressure and temperature readout on the same fitting. Pull out your factory oil pressure switch, install one of these, connect it to your aftermarket ECU, and with just a few extra wires, you're done. No sandwich plates or fitting Christmas trees are required. You may need some adapters to make it work with your engine, but you can use it on coolant, oil, and fuel.
This here is our incredible IC7 Haltech dash. How you doing? This is going to be fitting in exactly where the factory dash was, and to make that fit, we're going to be using this 3D Racing Solutions mount. Look at this. If you want to see satisfying, watch this go ka-clonk. Ka-clonk. Look at that. So that's going to mount in there. Then that there is going to mount up in the dash. That there, all of our data going through there. Dave, this is amazing.
Makes it easy, doesn't it?
Everything through there.
Yep. Everything.
How does it do it?
Do we have time? We don't have time.
In a sentence.
We don't have time.
How do we get everything through that?
Bits and bytes and canned messages.
There you go. Canned messages. Anyway, so I'm going to mount this in here. If you want to learn more about that, we'll put a link down below. You can read about it. It's actually very, very interesting, but it's probably a whole video, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to mount this up, then we'll go and rip the old one out, throw it in the bin. Hopefully there's no more Muppet under it. And then the smell of it. I didn't even know Muppets could. Disgusting. And then I will throw the old one in the bin, put this one in, and then we'll light it up and we'll show you what it does. While I'm assembling the dash into the mounts, Dave is finishing off the wiring, and when that's done, we can install all of it into the car. With the interior mostly done, now we can top up the power steering fluid and then talk about oil temperatures.
I have a bit of experience with track days and with keeping cars running, and this car needs to keep running, so it's all about heat management. So we've got the radiator in there, we've got stuff going in the bin that we don't need, but what I am going to do is I'm going to install an oil cooler. Now, a lot of episodes ago, we put an oil cooler on my K truck. Turns out, after lots of monitoring of the oil temps, didn't actually need it because it wasn't doing much. It's also not a track car. So we're going to repurpose the oil cooler kit that we put on the K truck and put it on this.
The simplest way to get oil in and out of the cooler is with a sandwich plate. It fits in between the oil filter and your engine block and sends it on a loop out through the cooler, and in our case, a thermostat as well. Take extra care when you're putting a system like this on, because if you get it wrong, your engine is gone.
This is the oil cooler, and this is an oil cooler thermostat. Now, if you're somewhere very cold, it is possible actually with one of these to make your oil too cold. We're going into summer in Australia. It is hot, really hot. Like today, it's nearly 40 degrees. What's that in Fahrenheit? I don't know, like 100, 110. It's hot. Anyway, so being that this is going to be pumped all through summer, we are not going to install this. On a road car, I would absolutely put this in without thinking about it because it's cold starts all the time. It may not get up to temperature, so you don't want to just be constantly running it through the cooler. But for a track car, I'm just going to run this. It's also simplicity, it's less plumbing, it's less points of failure. So I'm going to shove this in, find a nice spot for it there that doesn't block the airflow to our radiator, and then plug it into our oil sandwich plate.
There's plenty of room for the cooler because the radiator only uses half the space in the front of the engine bay. Dave has finished the loom, but will leave it unwrapped so we can troubleshoot it easily if needed. Then with a top up of oil and a test fire, we can drive it up onto a tow truck and go and get a wheel alignment. While the coilovers do open up some adjustment, we're still working with a pretty basic suspension setup. That said, there's always room for improvement when it's set correctly. The guys at DNA Autosport took half an hour off working on race cars to work on our race car, setting the height, correcting the toe, and increasing camber with a set of white line adjustable camber pins. These take the place of the factory bolts that connect the shock to the knuckle and allow you to change the angle, which affects camber. Many cars come with these from the factory, but ours didn't, so an aftermarket option is the way to go. Alternatively, you can buy coilovers with adjustable camber plates in the top, which will do a similar job. With the alignment done and the steering wheel centered, it's time to take it for a test drive.
Andre, how many of these have you worked on?
One.
This one?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Look, from underneath, they're fairly typical of a lot of other chassis. So we have seen this sort of thing before, but not one of these. Yeah, not too bad.
And what do you, with the suspension we've got in there, what have you done and what have you addressed with it?
So the first thing obviously we want to look at is the actual rake of the chassis, see where the actual the bodywork is sitting really. So that's the first thing, adjust the heights to where we want them, and then from there we do what we call a set down. So we want to see where the car is exactly as far as camber, toe, other bits and pieces. So if the car has no camber and we're about to give it 2-3 degrees, it will make a ride height change to the front. So we'll do a set down first so we can plan ahead essentially. Yeah.
And has you got any tips for a little car like this, driving this at speed consistently? What tips could you offer in terms of suspension and our driving?
So in terms of the suspension itself, I mean, the shocks that you have in there are a one-way, and if looking at the other one-way style of dampers that we've worked with, chances are that the bulk of the adjustment is rebound adjustment. So when you do drive it, if you do actually feel, let's say, a little bit of understeer, for example, the first thing they would think of is actually to soften the front end of the car. But if you were to do that, you'd pull extension force out of it, which is actually allowing the weight to come off the front axle faster.
Right.
So in this case, you may actually need to stiffen the damper in the front in order to fight that understeer or help that understeer. From a driving perspective, I mean, it's a solid axle in the rear, so you don't have that independent suspension. However, being front-wheel drive, the idea is we want to get the car in nice and early and increase our minimum corner speed and focus on that as much as possible.
Another massive couple of sessions on the little Daihatsu. How'd the suspension
Are
setup
you talking
go?
about when it smoked everywhere? Is that what you mean by session?
Well...
Oh, no, you mean just working on it?
No, just working on it.
Yeah.
How'd the suspension setup go, Martin?
Actually really, really good. Considering there's not much adjustment in these at all, like there's very little that you can change. The big win as well, we put the white line camber pins in it, and we got like nearly -3 degrees on the front.
That's awesome.
Which is excellent for something that you're going to thrash around the track.
This car, of course, has, like a lot of Mighty Car Mods projects, become bigger than expected. Next episode, we are going to be hitting the dyno to see how much power we can make. Look, we're not going to be hitting any kind of figures that are really anything to write home about. We're also going to be going to the track to do a bunch of track testing, and all of this is getting us closer to the ultimate reason that this car exists, which we will be revealing to you very soon. You will see it or you'll hear about it. But it's very, very exciting, something that I've been really, really excited about. I know Marty has been as well.
So pumped.
So next episode, dyno, some track testing, there it is. If you do want to support the show, of course, go to mightycarmods.com. You can grab some merch. It really does help directly support the show. We pack and send it from right here in this space, from Sydney, Australia, direct to your door.
Do you know what Daihatsu translates to mean?
To you or to everyone?
No, translate. Like the direct translation of Daihatsu is break the dyno, which is what's going to happen next episode. See you then.